Hello and welcome to Church at Home with Rachael for Thursday, the 9th of March. I can't remember what day it is. I'd like to talk a little bit about my appreciation of Beau of the fifth column. In all sincerity, he has been giving me for the last year and a bit since I've discovered Beau. He's kept my sanity in check. He has a great way of just being present and giving us an understanding of what's happening in the world and politics and really teaching me critical thinking, the ability to think critically, to take a look at something and not go with your gut necessarily, but to think it out. What are the consequences? Does this sound true? Things like that. But one thing I've noticed recently, a couple of times, he's touched on some stuff. Like in one case, he touched on, he was talking about a young man who had emailed him regarding how to be a good man in the dating world and things like that. And a couple of times he's touched on questions that have come in about how can we positively affect the world? How can, when we're facing all these challenges, what role can we play? And the other day he had one about a week or so ago. He had a video about roles, shifting thoughts and changing the world. And it really resonated with me because he obviously has a huge following and people around the world, and he has a huge impact on things, and that is incredible. But the reality is not very many people in the world have that kind of influence. I hate this idea of influencers and things like that. It really bothers me. But I can't speak today. The truth of it is that we have all had people in our lives that we look up to, people who have been influencers in our lives, role models, sports heroes, teachers, the next door neighbor, our coach or our babysitter or our best friend or our parent or someone who has spoken and lived their lives, spoken with authority and lived their life with so much integrity that we trust them, that we know we can follow them. And Beau is one of those people for probably hundreds of thousands of people. He is that person. And God bless him for that. That is incredible. And from everything I can see, he holds that authority very, very carefully and intentionally. And we need people like Beau. We need people like him who have that kind of influence and that kind of sway. But the reality is, as he keeps reminding us, is that most of us do not have that influence. We just don't have that environment in which that we do. And we shouldn't. Because we can only have so many people up there in the upper echelons that help us. And I think we're seeing that right now with social media, that there are so many people vying to be that most important, most influential person, that it's actually becoming really confusing to understand who we should follow, even in politics. It should not become who is the least bad. It should be where's the cream that rises to the top? Who is that person who speaks with integrity, who speaks hope, who speaks truth, even when it's difficult to find hope, but manages to speak the truth in such a way that people don't feel despair. And I think Beau is right there. But the world would not be okay. It wouldn't be, we wouldn't be able to handle it if we were influenced by people of such big influence all the time. We need, in our smaller spheres, in the world that we live in, we need there to be people who influence us, who have who are role models for us in these smaller ways. And I love hearing what he talks about, that, when a hurricane happens, or up here an ice storm or a windstorm or a drought or something happens, we don't have to be the person who is out there fighting the fire for forest fires, or be the person who is, cutting down trees or moving them off the road. Yes, those people are seen as heroes, and they're important and we need them. But those are people who should be trained on how to do that. You wouldn't want me out trying to wield a chainsaw to get a downed tree from across the road. That would just be dangerous. But those people, they step up. Those people who have those skills step up, and we appreciate them. But what about all those people behind them? And Beau talks about them a lot, about the people who help with the funding. How do you get the money so that we can get the resources for those people who know how to use them? But also, what about those people behind those people? I think about, for instance, the wife or the mother who is preparing their son or their child. I'm being very sexist here. Okay, so the spouse or the parent of the person who is going to go out in the bad weather, for instance, if there's a snowstorm, to be the snowplow operator, or to go out when the electricity's out and have to fight the weather to bring the electricity back on. The person who gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning when that emergency call comes in to make a thermos of coffee and sandwiches and pack a lunch for that person, who is the person who stays by the phone and waits and really doesn't get back to sleep because they're praying for or worrying about their loved one out there. There is a role for every single person to play in our lives. And where we have Beau up here and presidents and pop stars and, football heroes and things like that, we also have on our own levels, we have this incredible ability to be that person for someone else. I mean, how many of us can remember a teacher from elementary or high school that was the one who just helped us, the penny dropped? How many kids felt like they were the stupidest child in school until that one teacher said, well, think about it this way. What if you looked at that problem this way? You know what? You can't read because you're dyslexic. What if we did this? Or you can't hear, or you can't see the blackboard. So let's move you closer. It could be something as simple as that. It could be the babysitter who read you stories and told you all kinds of adventures, who gave you a sense that life is bigger than what you have. It could be a big brother or sister who always tells you they will be there for you, whatever you do. Most of us have at least one person, or maybe even several, that we can look back on and say, yeah, that's the person. I had Mrs. Scott for grade 1, and I had Mr. Dunn for grade 12 English, and I had Gord Hamilton for Old Testament Bible study when I was in seminary. I have people I can look back on and say, you know what, I haven't seen them in years, and they probably wouldn't even remember who I am, but they changed my life. The fact is, you probably have people that you have no idea how you changed their lives, and yet you did. For them, you could be a Beau of the fifth column. You might be the person that kept them from making the decision to take their own life, and you don't even know that you did that. You could be the person who helped them get through school, and again, all you did was help them with their homework. We can never underestimate the power of a good relationship, of an intentional reaching out to someone to share our integrity because we care. So for every single person who is watching this, I would bet my bottom dollar that you have changed someone's life for the better. So thank you for being a Beau of the fifth column for someone out there. And for those of you who can look back and say, you know what, I remember that person. If you have access to them, to your Mrs. Scott or your Mr. Dunn or your Gord Hamilton, reach out and tell them if you can find them, and let them know how incredible the impact they had on your life was, so that you could become the person that you are. We can't all be Beau of the fifth column, but we can all be the best person we can be, and we can help others to become the best person they can be as well. So thank you for being you, and thank you to Beau and to every other person in my life that I've either met or never met, but have, become adjacent to through something like this. Thank you for being willing to have integrity and to share your life in such a way that others can look at you and say, there is hope because there are good people in this world. God bless you all. I'll see you again tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachael.